They say your home is your sanctuary. For years, mine was, until Karen moved in next door. What started as petty annoyances escalated into a twisted vendetta, culminating in a courtroom battle where her lies nearly cost me everything: my freedom, my reputation, my entire life. Imagine a knock on your door, not from a friendly face, but from the police. Imagine being accused of a crime you didn't commit by the very person who's been tormenting you. This isn't fiction. This is the chilling story of how a toxic neighbor's complete meltdown, fueled by delusion and hatred, almost locked me up for good. Before I dive into what happened next, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Drop your location in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about toxic neighbors, unbelievable betrayals, and the quiet battles that explode into chaos. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. My name is David. For 15 years my home had been my sanctuary, a peaceful refuge in a quiet, tree-lined suburban street. My life was steady, predictable, and frankly, I liked it that way. I was a man of routine: morning coffee on the porch, tending to my rose garden, quiet evenings with a book. That tranquility was shattered the day Karen moved in next door. She arrived without much fanfare, a U-Haul pulling up to the house that had been empty for months. Karen seemed unremarkable at first glance, a woman in her late 40s, always impeccably dressed, with a stern, unsmiling face. I offered a friendly wave the first time I saw her, a typical neighborly gesture. She responded with a stiff nod, barely acknowledging me. That should have been my first clue. The initial annoyances were small, almost negligible. Her dog, a sleek but surprisingly loud German shepherd named Apollo, barked relentlessly at every squirrel, every passing car, every leaf that dared to fall. I'd always had a good relationship with dogs, but Apollo's incessant noise, often starting before sunrise, began to fray my nerves. I left a polite note in her mailbox suggesting a dog trainer I knew, but it went ignored. Then came the parking. My street had a common parking area for visitors, a small cul-de-sac that everyone shared. Karen, however, developed a habit of parking her oversized pickup truck directly across my driveway, often for hours. It wasn't completely blocking me in, but it made maneuvering my sedan out of the driveway a tight, frustrating ordeal. I tried to catch her, to ask her to move it. On the rare occasions I did, she'd offer a blank stare, a dismissive shrug, and say, "Oh, was that a problem? I didn't notice." The truck would remain, sometimes for another day before suddenly disappearing, only to reappear in the same spot later that week. It felt deliberate, a silent provocation. One afternoon, I was watering my prize-winning hybrid tea roses. Karen approached the fence, a rare occurrence. I smiled, thinking perhaps this was a chance for a civil conversation. "Lovely roses, David," she said, her voice surprisingly flat, without warmth. "Thank you, Karen. They're a labor of love." She tilted her head, a strange glint in her eye. "You know, my last neighbor had roses too. They were beautiful, until they got that strange black spot fungus, just withered away. Such a shame." A chill went down my spine. It wasn't a warning, not directly. It was a veiled threat, delivered with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I simply nodded, a knot forming in my stomach. The next week, a patch of my healthiest roses started to yellow, then blacken, quickly spreading. I suspected chemical interference, but I had no proof, just a chilling intuition that Karen was behind it. The petty war had begun. After the rose incident, the subtle acts of aggression became more frequent and more brazen. My mail, particularly packages, would occasionally go missing, only to reappear a day or two later, sometimes ripped open, sometimes with a clear footprint on them. My recycling bin once again became a target. Karen would regularly fill it with her own trash, forcing me to buy a separate, oversized bin just for her overflow, which I then had to haul to the curb on collection day. I installed discreet security cameras, not because I was paranoid, but because I felt a growing sense of unease, a need to protect my property from these unexplained accidents. They captured her, late at night, pulling items from my recycling bin and casually tossing them onto my lawn. They also caught her occasionally spraying something near my fence line, always just out of view of my rose garden, but close enough to make me wonder. I started a meticulous log. Dates, times, descriptions of incidents, accompanying photos and video snippets from my security system. My lawyer, a friend from college named Tom, advised me to keep building my case. Karen sounds like a classic nuisance neighbor, David, he'd explained. These things escalate. Documentation is your shield. One hot summer afternoon, I was cleaning my car in my driveway. Karen's sprinkler system, which usually came on at specific times, suddenly activated, drenching my car and me. I called out to her, politely asking her to turn it off. She was sitting on her porch, pretending to read a book, completely ignoring me. I eventually had to shut off my main water valve to avoid a complete soaking. I recorded the incident. The next day, I found a notice from the HOA on my door. It was a formal complaint, filed by Karen, accusing me of harassing her by demanding she turn off her sprinklers and loitering near her property. It was a complete fabrication. I immediately countered with my video evidence and my log. The HOA, clearly familiar with Karen's propensity for drama from past minor complaints, dismissed her claim. But the very act of filing a formal false complaint sent a clear message. Karen was escalating. She wasn't just being petty, she was weaponizing her victimhood, leveraging official channels against me. The thought of moving crossed my mind often, but this was my home. I had poured my life savings into it, built memories here. Why should I be forced out by a woman who seemed intent on making my life a living hell? I decided to stand my ground. I reinforced my fence, added more cameras, and continued my meticulous documentation. I was preparing for a battle, though I couldn't have imagined the terrifying arena in which it would ultimately be fought. The true turning point, the moment Karen decided to truly destroy my life, happened on a deceptively normal Tuesday. I was trimming the hedge along our shared property line, a task I usually performed with careful precision. It was a particularly dense hedge, and occasionally a branch or two would fall onto her side, which I always promptly cleaned up. That afternoon, I was almost finished when Karen emerged from her house, her face a mask of fury. She had Apollo on a leash, but he was straining against it, barking wildly as she approached the hedge. "David, what do you think you're doing?" she shrieked, her voice cutting through the quiet afternoon. I straightened up, pruning shears in hand. "Just trimming the hedge, Karen. Almost done. I'll clean up the trimmings on your side." "You're on my property," she accused, pointing a trembling finger at the ground, though I was clearly standing on my own side of the line. "You're trespassing, and you're trying to harm Apollo." I frowned, confused. "Harm Apollo? Karen, I'm trimming a hedge. Apollo is barking at the shears, that's all." She pulled Apollo closer, shielding him with her body, her voice rising to a hysterical pitch. "He's terrified. You're waving those sharp objects at him. You're threatening him. You're threatening me." I lowered the shears, trying to calm her. "Karen, that's absurd. I'm just trimming a hedge." Suddenly, with surprising force, she lunged forward, her hands shooting out. She didn't hit me, but she managed to grab the handle of my pruning shears. We both had a grip on them for a split second, a brief tug of war. I immediately let go, not wanting to escalate. She stumbled backward, clutching the shears to her chest as if I had attacked her. Apollo, sensing her distress, barked even louder, a frantic, aggressive sound. Then, the performance. Karen dropped the shears and let out a piercing scream, a truly blood-curdling sound that would chill me to the bone for weeks. She staggered back, clutching her arm, her face contorted in a theatrical display of pain and fear. "He attacked me! He tried to stab me with those shears! Oh, my arm! He's a monster!" Neighbors, drawn by the commotion, started peering over their fences. Karen immediately seized the opportunity. "He's dangerous! He just assaulted me! Call the police!" she wailed, collapsing dramatically onto her lawn, Apollo barking furiously beside her. I stood there, stunned, the pruning shears now lying innocently on the ground between us. My security camera, positioned perfectly on my garage, was whirring, silently recording every second. I hoped it had caught her true actions, her bizarre performance. But I also knew, with a sickening lurch, that what the neighbors saw was a man standing over a screaming woman, holding what looked like a weapon. Within minutes, police sirens filled the air. This wasn't a non-emergency call. This was a response to an alleged assault. My heart pounded against my ribs. This was no longer just petty vandalism or nuisance behavior. This was a direct, calculated attack on my freedom. The police arrived quickly, 2 cruisers pulling up to the curb. Karen was still on the ground, sobbing dramatically, Apollo whimpering beside her. She immediately pointed at me, her voice trembling with what sounded like genuine terror. "That man! He attacked me! He tried to stab me with those garden tools." An officer approached me, his face grim. "Sir, can you explain what happened?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Officer," I was trimming my hedge. Karen came out, completely unprovoked, and started accusing me of trespassing. She then grabbed my pruning shears. I let go immediately. She then screamed and collapsed. "He's lying!" Karen wailed from the ground. "He lunged at me. He was angry about my dog barking, and he just snapped." The officers looked at me, then at Karen, then at the pruning shears lying on the ground. This was a classic he said, she said situation, but Karen's dramatic performance was convincing to an outsider. "Sir, we're going to need you to come down to the station for questioning," one officer stated, "and we'll be confiscating these shears as evidence." The world seemed to tilt. Me? At the police station? For assault? I felt a wave of injustice so profound it nearly buckled my knees. I protested, told them about my security cameras. They said they would look into it, but I still had to go with them. At the station, the interrogation was grueling. I recounted every petty incident, every bizarre accusation, my meticulous log open on the table between me and the detective. I explained Karen's history of passive aggression, her complaints to the HOA. I showed them clips from my security camera footage on my phone, of her littering my lawn, parking illegally, even the suspicious spraying near my roses. The detective listened patiently, but his expression remained unreadable. "Mr. Thompson, Ms. Jones has filed a formal complaint. She claims you physically assaulted her with a weapon. She has a bruise on her arm, consistent with a struggle." A bruise? I had never touched her. My stomach dropped. She had probably inflicted it on herself. The audacity was breathtaking. Despite my insistence on my innocence and the camera footage I provided, which the police had to obtain a warrant to fully review from my system, I was formally charged with assault with a deadly weapon. The words hit me like a physical blow. Felony assault. The potential penalties flashed through my mind. Fines, prison time, a criminal record that would shatter my life. I was fingerprinted, photographed, and released on bail, with a stern warning to stay away from Karen. My lawyer, Tom, was furious. "This is outrageous, David. We have your footage, your log, but she's clearly a master manipulator, and a bruise, even a self-inflicted one, is powerful in court." The media, always keen for a juicy story, picked it up. Suburban spat turns violent. Neighbor charged with assault. My name was now public, linked to a crime I hadn't committed. Neighbors looked at me differently, with suspicion and fear. My quiet life was utterly demolished, replaced by a legal nightmare. Karen, meanwhile, appeared calm, almost serene, whenever I saw her, a triumphant glint in her eyes. She knew what she had done, and she revelled in my torment. The weeks leading up to the preliminary hearing were a blur of legal consultations, evidence gathering, and sleepless nights. My lawyer, Tom, worked tirelessly. He subpoenaed my security camera footage, which clearly showed Karen lunging for the shears, my immediate release, and her dramatic fall. He also compiled all my previous documentation, showing a clear pattern of harassment and false complaints from Karen. The preliminary hearing was tense. Karen took the stand, dressed impeccably, her voice soft and trembling, portraying herself as a terrified victim. She swore under oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And then she began to lie. "He came at me, Your Honor," she whispered, her eyes wide and seemingly filled with tears. "He was furious about Apollo, about the parking. He was yelling, his face red. He raised those sharp things at me. I thought he was going to kill me. I just instinctively reached out to protect myself, and he twisted them, pulled them away, and then he pushed me to the ground." She described a gruesome scene that never happened, fabricating details about my aggressive posture, my menacing words, even claiming I had threatened her dog. She held up her arm, displaying a faint, discoloured bruise, a perfect prop for her performance. Her voice cracked with emotion as she recounted her terror, her fear for her life. The prosecutor, a young woman who seemed genuinely moved by Karen's testimony, asked leading questions, allowing Karen to paint a vivid, false picture. My stomach churned. Her composure, her ability to weave such an elaborate, emotionally charged lie under oath, was chilling. It was a complete performance, designed to imprison me. She looked the judge directly in the eye, her voice unwavering, as she uttered falsehood after falsehood. It was pure, unadulterated perjury, and she was doing it with chilling conviction. I wanted to scream, to leap across the courtroom and expose her for the manipulative liar she was. But I had to remain silent, controlled, trusting in Tom and the evidence. When Tom's turn came for cross-examination, he was methodical. He started by replaying my security camera footage, frame by excruciating frame. The footage showed Karen approaching me, my calm demeanour, her sudden lunge for the shears, my instant release, her stumble, and her theatrical collapse. It was a stark contrast to her sworn testimony. "Miss Jones," Tom began, his voice calm but firm, "you testified that Mr. Thompson raised the shears menacingly at you, yet the video shows him holding them passively, away from you. Can you explain that discrepancy?" Karen faltered for a moment, her eyes darting away from the screen. "The angle. The camera distorts things. He was moving them very fast. It looked like he was attacking me." Tom pressed on, dissecting every detail of her fabricated story against the cold, hard facts of the video. He pointed out the moment I released the shears, contradicting her claim that I had pulled them away. He questioned the severity of her alleged fall, which appeared more like a controlled descent. He even highlighted the fact that the bruise on her arm was on the inside, inconsistent with an outward defensive movement. Karen's composure began to crack. Her voice grew shriller, her answers more evasive. "He manipulated that video! He's always watching me! He's trying to frame me!" she shrieked, her earlier calm dissolving into frantic accusations. The mask of the terrified victim began to slip, revealing the seething anger beneath. As Tom continued his relentless cross-examination, hammering away at the inconsistencies in her story, Karen's composure completely unravelled. She began to visibly sweat, her face flushing an angry red. Her eyes, once wide and seemingly innocent, now darted wildly around the courtroom, filled with a frantic, now cornered animal fear. "Miss Jones, you testified that Mr. Thompson pushed you to the ground," Tom stated, his voice unwavering, as he played the video clip again, focusing on her controlled fall. "The video shows you intentionally lowering yourself to the ground after releasing the shears. There is no force from Mr. Thompson. Would you like to revise your sworn testimony?" "He did! He pushed me! The camera is lying!" she screamed, her voice cracking, completely losing the soft, victimized tone she had adopted. She pounded her fist on the witness stand, a sharp, jarring sound in the quiet courtroom. "He set this all up! He's been harassing me for months! He wants to see me suffer! He wants to see me in jail!" The judge, a patient woman who had observed the entire exchange with a keen eye, interjected. "Miss Jones, you are under oath. You must answer the questions truthfully. Your accusations against Mr. Thompson and against the evidence are not responsive to the questions." Karen ignored her, turning her furious gaze to me, sitting with Tom at the defense table. You're a monster. You think you're so perfect, don't you? With your perfect lawn and your perfect little life, you drove me to this. You made me do it." Her finger was shaking as she pointed at me, her eyes filled with a raw, desperate hatred. This was it. The complete meltdown. Her voice escalated into a high-pitched wail, a truly terrifying sound that silenced the entire courtroom. "I hate you. I hate you. I hate your roses. I hate your stupid fence. I hate your quiet little life. You deserve to lose everything. You deserve to be in a cage." She launched into a torrent of incoherent accusations, spewing venom about every perceived slight, every minor grievance, real or imagined. She raved about the noise, the mail, the sprinkler incident, twisting every event into a narrative of my persecution of her. Her face contorted, spittle flying from her mouth, her body trembling uncontrollably. She started rocking back and forth, muttering to herself, her eyes glazed over. It was a terrifying display of a mind completely unhinged by delusion and a burning, all-consuming resentment. Bailiffs had to approach the stand, gently but firmly trying to calm her. Her public defender looked utterly defeated, burying his face in his hands. The prosecutor, who had earlier seemed so sympathetic to Karen, now looked shocked, her composure crumbling in the face of such raw, uncontrolled madness. The judge, after a moment of stunned silence, called for a recess, visibly disturbed by the scene unfolding before her. Karen was eventually led out of the courtroom, still muttering incoherently, her screams echoing from the hallway. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs during the recess. It was clear to everyone present that Karen was not merely a victim, but a deeply disturbed individual who had fabricated an elaborate lie. When the preliminary hearing resumed, Karen was not present. She had been taken for an emergency psychiatric evaluation. The judge, her voice solemn, addressed the court. Given the video evidence presented and the defendant's testimony and subsequent behavior, it is clear that the allegations against Mr. Thompson are entirely without merit. The court finds no probable cause to proceed with the charges against him. A wave of relief washed over me so profound it nearly brought me to my knees. The charges were dropped. I was free, exonerated. The nightmare was over, but it wasn't over for Karen. The prosecutor, now fully aware of the extent of Karen's deception, immediately filed new charges against her: perjury, filing a false police report, and obstruction of justice. The very lies she had told under oath, designed to imprison me, now became the chains that would bind her. Karen's subsequent legal journey was a stark contrast to mine. Her mental health became the primary focus. She was found to be suffering from severe delusional disorder, exacerbated by financial stress and social isolation. The reason why she did it, the distorted logic behind her actions, slowly became clear. In her mind, I was the cause of all her problems, a smug, judgmental neighbor whose perfect life highlighted her own failures. By destroying my life, by getting me locked up, she believed she would somehow restore balance, gain control, or simply make me suffer as she suffered. Her actions were not a prank, but a desperate, deluded attempt at vengeance. Ultimately, Karen was found not guilty by reason of insanity for the perjury and false reporting charges, leading to a mandatory commitment to a secure psychiatric facility for treatment, rather than a traditional prison sentence. A permanent restraining order against her, preventing any contact with me or my property, was also issued. The experience left deep scars. The financial burden of legal fees was significant, though I considered it a small price to pay for my freedom. The emotional toll was immense. For months, I struggled with anxiety, with the lingering fear that Karen might return, or that another false accusation could shatter my peace. I was more guarded, more suspicious of new people. My quiet home, once a sanctuary, now held the ghost of her malice. But with time, and with the knowledge that Karen was receiving the help she desperately needed, a new kind of peace began to settle over my life. My security cameras remained, a silent sentinel. My rose garden slowly recovered. Karen's house eventually sold to a lovely young family who brought a refreshing calm to the neighborhood. I learned a profound lesson about the hidden depths of human toxicity and the terrifying power of a lie. I had faced down a complete meltdown, not just in Karen, but in the justice system's ability to be manipulated. And I had survived, emerging with my freedom, my integrity, and a hard-won understanding of the fragility of peace. The story of Karen, who lied under oath and nearly got me locked up, became a chilling testament to the battles fought not with fists, but with words and the insidious power of a twisted mind.